Yeah. I'm just about a few guys, bro. I got the homies ready. Now nigga that, now nigga that, now nigga that, now nigga that's fast, now nigga that, now nigga that, now nigga that, now nigga that's fast, now nigga that. So we're gonna do our Light Eaters by Zoe Schlager read for the day, starting on chapter 6. Today is the 2nd of May. It's an unseasonably warm day in September, and Berlin is lit by full sun. In the city of long gray winters that begin promptly in autumn, there's a sense that this sunny day might have lasted for too long a time. People are sprawled throughout the city parks, lying between hedges and rose bushes. I see 3 older men on a bench, sitting with their faces tilted upward, eyes closed, saying nothing to each other. They look like they are trying to drink the last of the light through their pores. Right? Something like that. The dryness has already overtaken the Berlin Botanic Gardens, but a few hardy plants are still in bloom, their flowers angled, too, toward the waning rays. Have you ever tried to see the light of the sun from the shade? Like if you're sitting in the shade and you try to peep through the blinds or the blinders to see the sun. That's kind of what this is. They look like they're trying to drink the last of the light through their pores. They look like they are trying to drink the last of the light through their pores. The dryness has already overtaken the Berlin Botanic Garden, but a few hardy plants are still in bloom, their flowers angled toward the waning rays. My walking companion, Tilo Henning, is a researcher here. He is telling me about NASA Poissoniana. It's literally spelled like the French meaning of sun, poisson, le poisson, Poissoniana, Poissona. A light in the flowering Losaceae family that grows in the Peruvian Andes, and what he is saying has me captivated. What do you mean, the flower remembers? I ask. Where does it store the memory? So technically, the place where a computer, for example, if you're going to do Morse code or some type of coding at all, it would happen in the coding portion of all of the cache. Cache, C-A-C-H-E, cache, right? C-A-C-H-E, cache. Henning shakes his head and laughs, his black hair tied in a low ponytail draped over the collar of his sweatshirt. He doesn't know. No one does. But yes, he says, he and his colleague Max Wingeld, the president of the Botanical Gardens a few hours away in Bonn, have observed NASA Poissoniana's ability to store and recall information. They discovered that these multicolored starburst-shaped flowers were able to remember the time intervals between bumblebee visits. So if you remember, they were talking about the flight of the bumblebee and the buzz that happens in between. And anticipate the next time their pollinator was likely to arrive. This work offers a new and explosive addition to the world of plant behavior, plant memory. I've come here because it occurred to me that memory must be the basis of all complex behavior. I'd learned about plants listening to their surroundings, feeling touch, and exchanging information, but each of these abilities were limited by their fleeting temporality. So if your temporal lobe in the front of your brain was to perceive how other people perceive you, humans with a temporal lobe dent, incursion, accident, incident, like the string cheese incident, right? We're talking about string theory. That would impede the memory of a plant. I've come here because it occurred to me that memory must be the basis of all complex behavior. I'd learned about plants listening to their surroundings, feeling touch and exchanging information. But each of these abilities were limited by their fleeting temporality. What good is all that sensation without the ability to remember it? Without memory, very little can be done intelligently. Memories give us the capacity to learn and to orient ourselves in time and space. So basically, without memory, you don't have a time-space continuum. Part of the reason why Alzheimer's, dementia, and other memory-eating diseases, they end up being an ease that is dissociated from our temporal lobe, right? What would it mean if a plant could remember? Not the genetic sort of memory of birds returning to the same migratory grounds each year, but individual memory. So you know how people say, oh, we remembered this at the same damn time. I wear Gucci, I wear Prada at the same damn time. Okay. That's like the same as waking up in the morning and wondering who you're having relations with, right? I don't know. If you don't listen to Future or Jeezy, you probably won't understand the references, but that's all right. Elastic memory. Memories that change when circumstances do. The elaborate alien-looking flower structures and painful stinging hairs of the Loasaceae family have absorbed Henning and Wiggins, excuse me. It's Weigend apostrophe S. Apostrophe S. Attention for decades. They've named dozens of new species and described the nettle-like barbs in the plant stem, which have menaced them both with plenty of blisters. Wiegand is especially enthralled with things that prick and sting. He discovered that plants in the Loa, it's Loa, SAC, EAE, okay, family used to use the same ingredients to make their stinging hairs as humans and animals used to make their teeth. This is advantageous because stinging is tough work. The hairs are built precisely like hypodermic syringes and have to be hard enough to pierce the exoskeleton of their enemy and inject them with their stinging toxin. When he looked at other plant families, he saw that the architecture of stinging hairs was remarkably specific to each species, with different combinations of minerals in each, perhaps calibrated to match the hardness needed to pierce the skin of whatever animal ate them. But 1 year after an experiment inspired by watching bees flit around their plants in a greenhouse in Bonn, Henning and Weigerd realized something new. Nasa Pressaniana was able to present its pollen when it expects a pollinator to show up. So it's kind of like Jungian psychology, Freudian psychology, and a Friedrich Nietzsche, if we're talking about Voynich codes, right? The codes that divide humans, just like demographics. So if we're talking about skin color, gender, or economics, for example, all of those divide humans from each other. You cannot understand one another if you are of a different skin color, gender, or demographic, allegedly. Nasa poisoniana is a plant that apparently can be the prerequisite, the predeterminer, the predetermination, the predator. And it does so by remembering the time interval since the pollinator's last visit. So when someone asks you, how long has it been since you, never have I ever, have you ever? Those questions are time determinations on the time-space continuum. Nasa poisoniana was by then, thanks to their work, already talked about as the flower that behaves like an animal. I'm going to go ahead and choose a few decks that I understand at this point. We need to possibly dissect. Like many plants, the flower carefully parcels out the pollen it presents, only displaying a little at a time. So no single moth or bee gets too much, which would be bad for the overall project of genetic diversity. Thinking about temporal lobes, right? As they pertain to the Wernicke's area, the hippocampus, the entire lobe of one side, the other, integration together. But Nasa poisoniana goes a step further. When it notices few pollinators around, it offers up large globs of the sticky pollen at a time to hedge the bet. To hedge the bet that they will only have a few decent shots at pollination. It also dilutes its nectar to prompt the flying creature to come back twice for the same amount of sugar, dusting its body with pollen both times. Manipulating your pollinator makes sense for a flower living in such harsh conditions. Nasa poisoniana thrive at a high elevation between 1 and 3 miles above sea level, and often in tiny populations. They have to make every shot count. So this is kind of about shooting yourself in the foot. I'm not going to lie about that. Nasa poisoniana is one of very few plants that move their body fast enough for a human eye to watch. In this case, they move their stems, their stamens from horizontal to vertical within 2 or 3 minutes. So 2 or 3 minutes of horizontal versus vertical action. It's a priority for them. Got to get your priorities straight, horizontally, vertically. However it is that you do your thing. The flower stamens start out lying down, each one tucked into one of the concave petals that halo the flower's center, like so many canoes. When a bee arrives at the flower, it slips its straw-like mouth part beneath a central scallop-shaped petal and lifts up. Beneath the scallop is a pool of nectar. If you've never heard base nectar, which is technically Dionysus's elixir of the gods, which that elixir is whatever, grape juice from a grapevine that probably originated on a boulevard, a Broadway, or an avenue. Or maybe it's just water. Because water is the 80% of your body composition, elixir of life. Salt water, saline solution, technically. Allegedly. Somehow the shifting of that scallop triggers one of the flower's several stamens, the male fertilization of the flower, to erect itself. The mechanisms behind that response are still a mystery. You have 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 sets of lips if you're a woman. If you're a male, not so much. I'll leave that there for you. Mind boggled, right? But the rising of the stamen is a thrill to watch. Kind of a cheap thrill, not gonna lie, but it is a thrill. Nonetheless. Up goes a slender white filament topped in a little yellow package of strategically parceled out pollen to an arrow straight 90 degrees in the flower's center. When several stamens are erect, so at least 2, because a couple is 2 and 3 is several. So if we're talking about 2 to 3 in specific, that'd be what that is. They gather in slender cone shapes in the center of the petals, and the flower takes on a striking resemblance to a sci-fi laser beam launcher, aka Captain Kirk, in his own little world or land, thinking that he's going to be beamed up. Beam me up, Scotty, right? Beam me up. Great Scott. By the way, just FYI, this started on page 119. Other quick-moving plants have clear motivations. A white mulberry, for example, can catapult its pollen at around half the speed of sound, giving it a fair shot at dispersing far enough to find suitable conditions for growth. Sometimes when you grow, other people say or think or behave as though they cannot be contacted. It's a means of punishment. So imagine you're a pollinator, and you found a flower that you like to feed off of, right? You're feeding like a vampire. especially if you want to be beamed up. It's like you're ringing the doorbell multiple times, like, oh, I can't get in. And unfortunately, because of whatever constraint that specific flower seems to feel about your gardening skills, they're just like, you can't get in. They think that they are punishing you, like big pun, just killing you outright. Let it be. There's an asterisk here. Still, other quick-moving plants move for reasons scientists can't discern. Hadron Collider. Discernment. Should be of concern to most of the human race, but I don't think it really is. What the bleep did we know, right? The starfruit tree, for example, moves its leaves all day for unknown reasons. There's probably at least 13 reasons why, but most people won't even look at one. If you've never seen the 13th on Netflix, go watch it. Go see it for yourself. A prayer plant, a common house plant, is part of a large club of diverse plants that close their leaves at night, though scientists still debate why they do this. Because they're light eaters. That's why. That's why. The leaves of a fire fern, you would think that they would just burn, right? But the leaves of a fire fern, which is not a fern but rather a member of the oxalis family, appear to slowly dance. Dance. Again, no one knows why. Happens over and over, again and again. Everyone claims not to know exactly what is causing that dancing motion of the fire fern. Right? Right. It followed that NASA Poisayana must be moving that quickly for a reason. We thought maybe they can control it, Henning said. Maybe they recognize how often pollinators come. In 2019, Henning and Weigel first finding adding a stunning layer to the flower's elaborate sexual accounting. After the first bee leaves with all the nectar, the next bee to arrive won't get any. So if you are the first, then you're once upon a time. And if you're second, you're shit out of luck. SOL. More or less. More or less. But the NASA Poisayana will have raised a new stamen full of fresh pollen anyway, dusting the bee regardless. It's a long-established fact that an insect that finds no nectar will not try another flower on the same plant. Instead, it will fly farther away to a neighboring plant, carrying the pollen from the empty flower with it and fertilizing the flower on the next plant. That fake out is the key to NASA Poisayana's genetic diversity. But Weigel and Henning noticed that the stamen would already be raised before the next bee arrived. So technically the second one gets a carrot dangled in its face and yanked out from in front of it. Like a Yankee Doodle Doo. There's nothing left. If you've never seen the movie Left Behind, this is a good time to go watch. It seems to happen shortly before the bee's arrival. The movie The Arrival is really good. If you've never seen it, now's a good time to go watch. The Arrival, with the birds in the miner's cave, chirping away, just tweeting to each other. Tweet, 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 like just chirping. As if the plant could predict the future. So Future sings a song, sings a lot of songs actually. But in reality, it was simply recording the past. The pair set up an experiment to test if this could possibly be true, playing the role of the bees themselves. In one group of flowers, they probed their nectar cavity every 15 minutes. In the second group, they probed them every 45 minutes. So a group of 3 15s, basically. A third group was left alone as a control. The next day they came back and watched as the 15-minute group energetically raised their statums in a rapid schedule, while the 45-minute group waited longer, raising their statums further apart. They tested them again and found that if the interval between pollinator visits changes, say from 45 minutes to an hour and a half, by the next day, the NASA Posayana will have adjusted the timing of its display to line up with the new schedule. It was learning from experience. They obviously are able to count the time between the visits and keep that memory, Henning said. Botanists had never noticed this behavior before. Nasa Poisayana, in addition to being a masterful pollen accountant, was also a memory flower. A memory flower. They keep walking along a memory flower paths. I know what Henning thinks about the debate erupting in botany circles in recent years about whether plants can be considered to behave. Oh, behave, right? That's Austin Powers, and I do believe they play Flight of the Bumblebee. Bumblebee. Let me not bumble along. Let me just get to it. And whether their behavior could connote a form of intelligence or consciousness. As I discover over and over again, this was the talk of the town. And a very touchy territory. Are plants intelligent? And if they are they also conscious? I want to know what Henning, who has just discovered that the plants he studied for 20 years is capable of memory, in particular thinks of this. The specific flower that they're talking about was counting time and then changing behavior according to the actual scenario it experienced. Henning and Whining called it intelligent behavior in their paper, but the word was still enshrined in quotations. I thought it was possible that Henning saw the flower's apparent ability to remember as a hallmark of consciousness, as a hallmark of consciousness. Or he could just as easily see the flower as an unconscious robot with a pre-programmed suite of responses. We call our robots intelligence too sometimes. So your robot, the one that you purchased, can download, upload, edit photographs, video clips, voice memos. It does all that automatically. What it can't do is be you. It's the only thing it cannot do. It can listen to every conversation you'll ever have in its vicinity. It can regurgitate every part and piece, particle of what it thinks it knows, and you will still remain a mystery because human memory will never naturally do that. Human experience could never do that. And the parts that bump in the night, like stubbing your toe, getting a ticket while driving, and being given a line test where you have to walk the line, or maybe a flashlight shown in both eyes for you to discern for yourself whether you should be concerned about the pupil dilation process. Those things can only be observed by the cameras on your phone. Photographic facial recognition programs will end up recognizing who sent and who received. The givers, the takers, the undertakers, the overstanders, all of those. Memory has long been tackled and tangled up with how we think about our own consciousness. Our sense of pastness, as it's sometimes called, fills out the awareness of ourselves as beings who move through time. So I'm saying there's a chronological log that cannot be clogged no matter how hard they may try. Which just means relax a little bit, chill out. Your IP address has been recorded. If not by a human, definitely by a robot. And if they want to start a row with you over what they purchased, there's chronological record of that also. Memories are the backbone of the narratives we tell ourselves about ourselves. Nothing could be more essential to conscious experience. That's what I'm saying. The trail of your IP address, your HTTP, HT, H-tone, it's going down. So your TP habits might become TTPS, HTTPS. Also a website, URL, IRL.com. And then you're going to become the bomb.com because that will all hit the surface. Rather violently, I may add, but it doesn't mean it has to alter you facing the matter face to face, outside of them trying to, threaten you. That they won't see what's going on, that they won't understand, that they wouldn't recognize your walk just about anywhere that you go. It's a stalker mentality. That's what IT does. They dodge the fact that IT is stalking you. Actively. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If your bloodline doesn't know how to crip walk, you're probably already at a disadvantage. And if you crip walk on the bloodline, you're probably already at a disadvantage. Mazateclan, Aztec. No, I'm not playing. Your emotional state of being, a river runs through it. And denial is not just a river in Africa. But philosophers of mind tend to distinguish that sort of long-term memory from the kind that botanists have thus far found plants are capable of. Presumably, they would argue that a plant accounting for the changing pressure in its own growing body parts, or the arrival times, ETAs, estimated times of arrival, of bees, is not participating in conscious memory. It's stealth mode, basically. Yet, they're not very stealthy if you can identify that that is stealth mode, right? Yet, this is hardly a settled opinion. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like signing an NDA that you never signed. Soon, tech will try to indistinguishably sign an NDA in your name that you never put pen to paper to, or for, or because of. And that's the reason why you should go watch the 13th. Some people are locked up for an eighth of weed, which is now legal in multiple states. Plenty of other philosophers agree that the opposite, that all memory shares a common basis with consciousness. Common. It's the green light, right? If you floor your car through a green light because it's the common basis of consciousness, and then you get pulled over and thrown into jail because you also have an eighth of green on you, you better hope your birth certificate is not green, that your face is not green, sick, nauseous, jealous, or otherwise, and that little green men are never something that you encounter. All memory transforms a neutral world into a playground of personal meaning. Meaning definition. Meaning understanding. Meaning comprehension. Of course, this database debate is likely to continue as long as the neural mechanisms underlying consciousness continue to elude scientists. Henning shake it off. I don't know the name of it. I don't know who wrote that song. Okay. My question the first two times I asked. They asked twice. That's what they're confessing. But the third time, something in him shifts. He stops walking and turns to answer me. Either he is fed up with me, or I've worn out the facade of careful reserve expected of professional researchers. I told you it's a threat. thinly veiled as they think it may be. There is a location called Vale also. If you want to travel to Vale, if you want to threaten through thinly veiled threatening tactics, it just doesn't really resonate. Not really. The dissenting papers, he says, are all focused on the lack of brains. No brains, they wrote, will mean no intelligence. Plants don't have these structures, obviously, but look at what they do. I mean, they take information from the outside world, and it literally says that, verbatim. They process, they make decisions, and they perform. They take everything into account and they transform it into a reaction. And this to me is a basic definition of intelligence. I mean, it's not just automatism. If you've never seen the movie Automata, they use robots and abuse them fairly recklessly. There might be some automatic things like growing toward light, but this is not the case here. It's not automatic. Henning returns to my first question about where Nasa Posoyana's memories could possibly be stored. The cache. The store, right? Anywhere. In the cloud, the upload, the download, the reload. That is, of course, still a mystery. If you've never heard, I think it's FJK, Mystery Woman, or hold on. They also sing a song called Tadao, which is pretty. It's FKJ, Mystery Lady. That's a commercial. However, the commercial leads to the song. Gibberish, but ironically, the jib is the tip of a pen. But, Henning says, maybe we are just not able to see these structures. Maybe they are so spread all over the body of the plant. Maybe they are so spread all over the body of the plant that there isn't a single structure. Maybe that's their trick. Maybe it's the whole organism. I'm going to stop here. It's page 124. I'm going to stop right here. Reiteration, pages 119, 124. These are the decks that I was automatically drawn to. It's going to be a really long reading. We're already at 44:22 minutes into the reading. This one to come out first, Shadow. I'm going to do this quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Here's Intuition. It came out in the reverse. So your shadow self didn't know, had no intuition. Your shadow self does not use intuition. It uses gut feelings. Gut feelings. That's what I'm going to say. It's inside your body, and there's shame. The shadow self doesn't understand shame. It understands yes or no. You know, it's a devil and an angel, an angel, an angel, and a devil sitting on your shoulder. And if you don't understand that, this is what happens. So your devotion ends up not being pleasurable, or your pleasure, it is not your pleasure to be devoted. Okay. So that's the top of the reading. Bottom of the reading is suffering. Suffering is going to happen if none of this is paid attention to. That's automata. That's automatically. The shadow of the moon is not the same thing as the face of the moon. And if you're shaming the face of the moon, intuitively you're living in the shadow of the moon. If you live in the shadow of the moon, you intuitively don't understand what kind of quiet aim you should have, which is not to be jealous, green-faced, sick. How many, when you see the emoji of the green face, do you think of a frog, an alien, a sick person, like ill or somehow suffering, right? Ailing in any way, shape, or form? Or do you think of like jealousy? Little green men, aliens. Yeah. So your shadow self is automatically not going to be jealous. They're not going to pick up on the proverbial, I do want to say primordial cues. Yeah. See that the devil and the angel on each shoulder? You don't know which shoulder. They don't understand intuitively which shoulder has the devil and which one has the angel. Look, I'm seeing the flip. It's like flip-flopping back and forth. They want to claim both sides at the same damn time because they don't understand the golden rule. The golden rule. They don't understand. They don't know which side it's on. There is no balance. Some people want to win at all costs. That's the golden egg in reverse. That blatantly lets you know that there's been some little green man running across the face of your life, the face of your world, and they're jealous, they're disgusting. I'm not pointing in any specific direction. They're disgusting. And they have no concept of, oh, I can't see color. They're angry inside, which is the problem with the shadow self. Look, I'm not even going to pick it up. Look. The shameless part of yourself is the part that doesn't know who you are. And I'm saying who for a reason. They don't know who they are. So they're jealous of you. They don't really understand that you're only as sick as your deepest secrets. Ooh, there comes the butterfly. This is the non-pleasurable devotion. So if you think about, and the bat in the reverse right here with suffering in the upright. Okay? They don't understand that it's not crazy when you've been pimped out like a butterfly. Someone's like, oh, let me pimp your ride for you. Other people can't do that. Other people are not able to do that. You are the only one that can give away your power. So somebody on the shadow side of the moon doesn't understand, cannot see, and this is horrible. Like this is, so in the upright, this is the evil eye, maybe protection from that because you're eating your own words. It's karma completing the cycle. In the reverse, this is never doing that. You're unable to close the cycle. You're unable to see yourself as both the angel and the demon at the same time. Your intuition does not work. It's in the reverse. You see this happiness, the sun, as shining through the devil's horns. And this is who you don't understand that you are. You are the aim, you are the purpose, you are the target of both the devil and the angels. The devils, the angels. The angels equal the devils, and the devils equals the angels. If you think about Lucifer himself, right? He was an angel that fell to earth. Fell to earth. And used to be God's favorite. Used to be devoted. And those wings right there were stripped by somebody else, most likely, because they don't know who they are. So you let someone else knock you out the park with a bat, like home run, right? And now you're suffering as a result of it. I've been through this before. Personally, I've been through it. Personally. But when you make an ally with suffering, the only thing that you are going to feel is miserable every single day of your life. And you're going to try to pawn it off on everybody else. Okay? You're not going to be able to walk out into the world and spread joy, messages of clear, concise, unobliterated, visionary, missionary, whatever positionary switches you need to push, press, or pull on, right? This is Nadia Turner. Yeah, this is this seed spell coming out in the reverse. It says, create your story. It is the most potent form of magic. This is in the reverse. The shadow self doesn't know how to create anything. They don't know how to be potent. They're impotent when it comes to knowing who they are. Impotent. When you know who you are, when this is all in the reverse, shame is in the reverse, and the owl is in the upright, that's when you've kind of understood the task at hand. So everything is bass backwards right now, is what I'm seeing. Yep, here's the sentinel in the upright. I do just want to point out the way that the angels, the ones that are going to send you the scent, the smell, the ones that are going to seek you, seek and ye shall find. You see those horns there, and you see the pointed precipices of non-intuition happening. There's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Angel, demon, both shoulders. I don't know what to tell you. Balance happens within yourself, not outside of yourself. And balance happens outside of yourself when it happens within yourself. It goes both ways. Which is why I'm saying, don't bother saying female, male, inside, outside, left, right, up, down, diagonal, cubed, hedge guardians. Look, this is literally Hedgewig. Okay, this came out in the reverse. But because it's an owl and hedge guardians came out, it says, walk widdershins and seek the land under the hill. Shame. I think the Vatican actually did ban Harry Potter as a book for children to read because they didn't like the mystical, magical magician, Magellan, majesty within it all, okay? There's no intuition that maybe you might have to, from the preacher's pulpit, I'm hearing son of a preacher man, the only one who could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. They don't really understand that when you're aiming to enlighten a large body of people, if you don't have a four corners kind of spear, a arrowhead, some type of dart to throw at all four corners, how do you drive somebody crazy? Tell them to find the corner of a circular room, right? Ouch. Yeah. That's what Hedwig does, is finds the corner under the stairs with a lost boy of a circular room. And it's a shame that other people can't see it, but it's platform 9 3/4 at the train station. So if the train seems delayed to you, it may not be for you. Sometimes the higher ups, the gods, the crazy gods, they must be crazy. They save you from the fire, and others save you through the fire. Sometimes this metamorphosis takes time. You devote yourself to being a voracious eater of light. You want to become a butterfly so bad that you cocoon yourself into something that is not pleasurable. And if you don't have the intuitive wherewithal to understand that, the suffering is not crazy. It's granted. It's earned. You asked for it. It's discernment of forests and trees within the jungle. It's Jung and Freud being niche in a very different position than from the one you might have assumed, because that just makes an ass out of you and me, right? This is the gnome, mushroom, and buttons. Seek silliness and joy, they are wise teachers. And this is in the reverse. Sometimes if the whole crowd is chanting one thing, if you want to be the conductor, not only of the train, but of the orchestra, you've got to turn your back on the crowd. The Greenwood. Seek comfort and acceptance. Be kind to yourself. There you go. So this fell actually in the reverse, but I'm taking it in the upright just because I want to make a full circle return to the cover of this book, which actually looks nothing like the actual hardcover itself. But I do want to say the saddle there on the back and the bunny as well as the bird sitting on the horns of this one right here. This is number 3 set of horns that has emerged. See the horns, and the horns. Da na na na. I'm also hearing make them say no 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 no. The bottom of the deck here is the North Wood Fae. Take time for hibernation and healing. Last but not least, we've got the plant deck, obviously. I'm not going to speak on these. I'm just going to pull them. And you can make your own assumptions as necessary. We've got sorghum in the reverse. Number 8 can be produced with less water and fertilizer than most grain. Literally don't mind my nails. I was literally planting plants, as many as I could around my building. Some of them took, some of them did not. Some of them did not. Queen tomato in the middle. There are around 10,000 varieties of tomato worldwide. So this is the 1, 2, 3 sets of horns, right? And I could just put this horn back here with the bat and the bat in the reverse and the suffering. We'll just do that. Okay. Bunny bird. Bunny bird to the greenwood. Here's shiitake. So just in case you want to talk some. It's in the reverse though. This is the ace. So now we've got the 8 in the reverse, the queen tomato in the upright, the shiitake ace in the reverse. Shiitake says the second most commonly eaten mushroom in the world. It's coming out with who's who. Let's see what we've got for the bottom of the reading. Soy. Soy plant in the upright, number 7. So now we've got 87. These are the two number cards that came out together in that order. 87 with the Q&A. Yes, I love you too. I love you too. There's Chanterelle. Yeah. Okay. The next chapter is talking to animals. Gotta know how to pick up on the cues. Chanterelle is in the reverse. This says, has a fruity aroma, but is noted to have a peppery flavor. So this is coming out in the reverse with the suffering, the bat, and the greenwood. Like I was just telling you. If you don't know what a little green man looks like, you probably will never understand any other species of predator, of alien, or any kind of psychic, psychosis, or psychology for that matter from here on out. No offense.